She said it the way you'd mention a broken appliance. Mom just doesn't fit into our life right now. Not cruel, exactly. Just practical. The way my daughter has always been practical. I was standing in the hallway outside her kitchen, still holding the peach cobbler I'd driven 40 minutes to bring. The dish was warm through the towel wrapped around it. I'd made it from scratch that morning, the way her grandmother taught me, with brown sugar and a lattice crust she used to beg for as a little girl. I wasn't supposed to hear anything. I'd knocked twice, the door swung open on its own the way it sometimes does, and I stepped inside calling her name. But she was on the phone in the kitchen, her voice low and certain. Marcus keeps asking why she drops by without calling, she was saying. And honestly, I don't have a good answer. She's lonely, I get it. But we have our own rhythm now. She doesn't fit into it. I stood there long enough to hear the silence on the other end of the line. Then she said, I love her. I just need her to love me from a little further away. I set the cobbler down on the hallway table, quietly. I pulled the door shut behind me and walked back to my car. The drive home took longer than it should have. I kept missing turns I'd made 1,000 times. My hands were steady on the wheel, but something inside me was shaking. Not the kind that shows. The kind that goes all the way down to the floor of you and just sits there. She doesn't fit into it. I am 67 years old. I taught 3rd grade for 31 years. I raised my daughter alone after her father's heart gave out when she was 9. I worked summers, evenings, Saturday mornings so she could go to the school she wanted, wear the clothes she liked, take the piano lessons she eventually quit. I drove her to every audition for the school play she never got cast in. I sat in hospital waiting rooms 3 separate times during her 20s when her body had things to work through. I held her hand when she married Marcus and smiled until my face ached, because she was happy, and her happiness was the whole point. I was never trying to fit into her life. I thought I was her life. Part of it, anyway. When I got home, I didn't cry. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table and stared at the place on the wall where I'd hung a photo of the 2 of us from the year she graduated college. She's laughing in it. My arm is around her shoulders, and I look like the proudest woman alive. I looked at that photo for a long time. Then I opened the drawer under the phone and pulled out the folder I kept for things I never wanted to think about. Insurance documents, my retirement accounts, the deed to the house, and the envelope from my estate attorney that I hadn't opened since I signed everything 3 years ago, the week after my sister passed, when mortality suddenly felt close enough to touch. I'd left everything to my daughter. The house, which was paid off. The savings, which were modest but real. The jewelry that had come down through my mother and her mother before her. I'd done it without thinking twice because, of course, who else? Now I sat with that folder in my lap and thought, doesn't fit into it. Maybe some things needed adjusting. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in the dark listening to the sound of the neighborhood settling and thought about money. Not in the bitter way, not tallying debts. I thought about what it means to give someone everything, and have them experience it as too much. How that happens. How you don't notice while it's happening. I'd co-signed her car loan when she was 26. I'd paid 4 months of her rent when she and Marcus were first starting out and things were tight. I'd bought the crib, the stroller, the rocking chair for the nursery of the baby they lost. The one that broke all of us quietly, and we never quite finished grieving. I'd paid for the courses she took to get her certification when she changed careers at 38. I'd bought the plane ticket that got her to Marcus's mother's funeral in time. None of it felt like money. It felt like love in the only form I knew how to give it quickly enough. But, somewhere along the way, she'd stopped seeing it as love and started experiencing it as obligation. And somewhere along the way, I think I stopped being her mother and started being a resource she managed. I got up at 5 in the morning and made coffee and sat at the desk where I used to grade papers. I wrote a list, not of what she owed me. Nothing like that, but of what I'd been doing with my money that was hers. The monthly contribution to her daughter's school activities fund. The standing grocery order I had delivered to her house every 3rd week, the one she'd never once mentioned, but also never canceled. The car insurance I still paid because she'd asked me to once, and I'd just kept doing it for 3 years. I looked at the list for a long time. Then I picked up the phone and called my bank. The man who answered was patient and professional. I asked about canceling automatic transfers. He asked me to confirm which ones. I confirmed all of them. He read them back to me one by one, a list of small and steady givings, and I said yes to each. He asked if I was sure. I told him I'd been thinking about it longer than he'd been working there, probably, and yes, I was sure. When I hung up, the house was very quiet. I called my attorney the next morning. I'd worked with him since the year I bought the house, a careful man who wore the same style of glasses for 20 years and spoke like every word cost something. I told him I wanted to review my will. He asked what I had in mind. I said I wasn't sure yet, but I wanted to talk about my granddaughter. My granddaughter is 19. She drives an old car with a cracked dashboard and studies environmental science at a state school 2 hours north. She calls me on Sunday evenings, not because anyone told her to, just because she does. She asks how my knee is holding up. She sends me articles about things she thinks I'd find interesting. Last Christmas she drove through a snowstorm to sit with me, because she knew I'd be alone and she didn't think I should be. She didn't make a production of it. She just showed up with her overnight bag and a bag of kettle corn, and we watched 3 old movies and I slept better than I had in months. My daughter knows none of this about her own child, or if she does, she doesn't think it remarkable. The attorney and I talked for an hour. When I left his office, the air outside felt different, not lighter, exactly, more honest. The call came 4 days later. My daughter's voice on the phone, careful and controlled in the way that means she was anything but. "Mom, can we talk?" "Of course," I said. "I heard something. Marcus mentioned that the grocery order didn't come this week, and I called the bank about the insurance and they said..." She stopped. "Did you change something?" "A few things," I said. A long pause. "Why?" I thought about how to answer. I thought about the cobbler I'd left on her hallway table and whether she'd ever found it. I thought about the photo on my wall, that laughing girl with my arm around her. "I heard you on the phone last week," I said, "when I came by with the cobbler." The silence was different this time. "I wasn't trying to listen," I said. "I knocked. The door was open. But I heard you tell someone I don't fit into your life." She didn't deny it. "That told me something." "Mom," she said finally. "That came out wrong?" "Maybe," I said. "But it came out. She wanted to meet for coffee. I said I'd think about it." When we hung up, I sat in my reading chair and let myself feel all of it. Not just the hurt, but the strange, clear-eyed calm underneath it. Like something had finally been named that had been living unnamed in my house for years. She came over 2 days later, unannounced. She stood on my porch in her work clothes, still carrying her bag, like she'd driven straight from the office. I opened the door and stepped back and let her in. She sat at the kitchen table. I made coffee. We were quiet for a moment in the way we used to be quiet when she was a teenager, and we'd had a fight and neither of us wanted to go first. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded," she said. "Tell me how you meant it then." She pressed her lips together. "Marcus and I have been going through something. Not bad, just a lot of pressure, and I think I've been bad at separating that from you. From me being too much," I said. "I never said too much. You said I don't fit." She looked down at her coffee. "I know." I waited. "I've been tired," she said finally. "And when I'm tired, I say things that aren't. I don't mean them as badly as they land." She looked up. "But I know how that sounds. Like an excuse." "It does," I said. "A little." She wasn't used to me agreeing with her that directly. I could see it on her face. A small recalibration. "Did you really change the will?" she asked. "Yes." She went very still. "To what?" "I set up something for your daughter," I said. "For her education. Whatever she needs to finish school and get started." My daughter's eyes filled, which surprised me. "And me?" "You're not removed," I said. "But things are different now." "Mom." Her voice broke a little. Not the way it breaks when she's manipulating a situation. "I've known the difference for 40 years, but genuinely, I don't care about the money. I care that you were that hurt." "I was," I said simply. "I am." She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, she didn't try to fix anything. She said, "I didn't know I'd made you feel so invisible. I thought I was just living my life." "You were," I said. "So was I. We just forgot to keep each other in it." She left after an hour. No hugs, no promises. Just a hand on my shoulder at the door, and a look that had something in it I hadn't seen from her in years. Something like seeing me. The following Sunday, my granddaughter called. She didn't mention her mother, didn't mention the will. She told me about a wetlands project her class was doing, about a professor she found exhausting and brilliant in equal measure. She asked if my cobbler recipe used canned peaches or fresh. "Fresh," I said. "Always fresh." "I figured," she said. "I want to learn how to make it sometime." "Come on a weekend," I told her. "I'll show you." She arrived 3 weeks later on a Saturday morning. She filled my kitchen with her noise, the particular kind young people make when they're not performing comfort but actually feeling it. We made 2 cobblers, one to eat, one for her to take back to her dormitory roommates. I showed her how to cut the butter cold, how to work it with your fingertips until the crust held without being tough. She asked questions. She paid attention. We ate lunch at the table with the kitchen window open, spring coming in on a slow warm wind. "Grandma," she said at some point, wiping her mouth, Are you okay? Really? I considered the question. I'm getting there, I said. I think I forgot for a while that my life belongs to me. She nodded. Not sympathetically, not with pity. With understanding. The way someone nods when they recognize a truth they've already been carrying. Before she left, she hugged me the way she always has, with her whole self, nothing held back. I stood in the doorway and watched her car disappear around the corner and felt something settle into place inside my chest. My daughter called that evening. Her voice was quieter than it had been in the coffee conversation. Smaller. She told me she came to see you today, she said. She did. She said you made cobbler. We made cobbler, I said. She did most of it herself by the end, a pause. I used to love that cobbler. I know, I said. You still know where I live. She laughed. Short, surprised. Then Mom, can I come over sometime? Not to talk about everything. Just to come over? I stood at my kitchen window and looked out at the yard. The azaleas were starting to come back. I'd planted them the year my daughter was born, a different kind of record keeping. Yes, I said. Come for dinner. Next Friday if you want. Okay, she said. There was relief in her voice and also something harder to name. Something like the beginning of effort. I'll be there. When we hung up, I didn't analyze it. I just stood there in my kitchen, in my paid-off house, in my life that I had slowly been giving away one transfer and one grocery delivery at a time, and I felt, not healed, not finished, but awake. I took out the notepad I keep by the stove and wrote myself a reminder for next Friday's menu. Chicken. Roasted, the way she's always preferred. A salad. And cobbler, obviously, but this time I'd make her help. The next morning I called my attorney. Not to change anything back, just to add a line. Something I'd been thinking about since the conversation on my porch. I wanted it written somewhere that the door was not locked. That whatever had grown crooked between my daughter and me could still, given time and honesty and two people who both showed up on purpose, grow back toward something true. He said he'd add a note to the file. I thanked him, hung up, and went outside to check on the azaleas. They were further along than I'd realized. Bright and stubborn. The way things are when nobody's been paying enough attention, and they've had to bloom on their own. I knelt down and pulled a few weeds from around the roots. My knees complained. I did it anyway. Some things you tend to because they've always been yours. Some things you tend to because you finally remembered they were.